Our MC for tonight is if Coach Gear and Audrey, if you guys can have a seat right here in these nice seats, you match your outfits nice and come on down and we'll make it comfortable right here. This kind of reminds me of This Is Your Life, used to be on TV, but I don't know if we'll go that far. But I'd like to welcome everyone tonight that can make it. Join us for a celebration of Coach Gear's career. Just want to do it before a game. That's a good time to get together, and homecoming seems like a good time to do it. I'd like to introduce our MC, special guest tonight, Mr. Jim Howdy. Mr. Jim Howdy, he graduated from City High School in 1954. Allegedly the best class ever, according to his statistical information. He coached 1 year in Fairview in 58-59, taught American Lit, Speech, and Advanced Composition in Sydney from 1959 to 1977. Mr. Howdy also coached basketball in Sydney from 1960 to 1967. He was athletic director from 67 to 77, and he was with the MHSA from 1977 to 2004. Jim also served on the Board of National Federation of High School Associations from 2000 to 2004, and Mr. Howdy has truly enjoyed all aspects of the activities, except for some of the parents around the state, of course. So welcome, Mr. Jim Howdy.
Hi. I'd like to welcome all of you too. I'm an old Sydney guy, and when Dan called me about coming over here, of course, that was a good thing. I stopped and saw my mother today, and I'm going to tell a story about her in a few minutes that has to do with Mike. And so I was kind of killing two birds with one stone, but I want to give you a little bit of advice. I give very little advice. Don't drive between here and Glendive unless you have to. It's hard to do this. I've been around the activities for 67 years, and I don't know a whole lot about anything else, but I know a lot of Montana sports trivia. I want to talk just a little bit about that. With that in mind, your honor tonight is one of the 4 coaches that have done what they've done in 100 years. Mike's the same category, Sweet Dahlberg and Butte, Jack Johnson and CMR and Great Falls, Dr. Schillinger, a lot of you know, and Baker. And you have to think about the record that Mike's had. 222 and 99. Didn't get that 100. And then you figure 9 state titles. Most of those years that Mike coached, we had about 20, 25 Class A schools. Well, if you look at everything fairly, and this is why it's not fair to get on coaches very often when maybe you're having a losing program. If everything's fair in a football program, each school should win once every 25 years because it's 25 Class A schools. So that's how greedy he was. If you go to Class C and you've got 100 of those, you win one every 100 years. And those towns that don't win, when there's a lot of towns that have never been to a state basketball tournament. And people forget that. They get greedy, they get after coaches and they don't win, and of course that's not fair. At functions like this, I'd like to talk a lot longer tonight than I'm going to, but we've got a half hour, we've got 4 speakers, Dan's put together a really good program, and so I'm going to be really brief and tell us just a couple things about Mike in a minute. Before I do that, I'd like to call on the Honorable Brett Smeltzer, Mayor of Sydney, who has a proclamation for you tonight.
If we had time, I'd tell some stories too. The man to my left, just to tell you how old he is, he played football with my father. They never won much on the football field, and my father always complained, and Mr. Hoggan would say, well, we'll get him in basketball, and my dad would say, I don't play basketball. So anyhow, Mike, I have had the honor, the privilege of growing up in Sydney, Montana. And I've had some wonderful mentors. And on my one hand, I can count those that meant that much to me with guidance and I can sum Mike Gear up in one word. I can use a lot of words to sum him up, but I can sum him up in one word. Mike Gear is a gentleman. Whereas Mike Gear has been a lifelong resident of Sidney, Montana, whereas Mike Gear has taught for the Sidney school system for 39 years, whereas Mike Gear has been head coach for the Sidney High School football for 35 years, and this is Coach Gear where I needed help because we had two different reports on his win-loss record. So I'm not going to say what it is. And we know that you have 222 wins, correct? Is it 99 or 101? You're not going to. I know our team gave you one loss, so, but I don't know where that works out. The 222 wins is an awesome record. Whereas Mike Gear has led the Sidney Eagle football program to 9 state A championships, whereas Mike Gear has been named Montana Coaches Association Coach of the Year 9 times, whereas the National Federation of Interscholastic Coaches Association has named Mike Gear Coach of the Year twice for Section 8, and in 2004 named Mike Gear the Class A Activities Director of the Year. Whereas the Sidney Education Association and the Sidney Area Chamber of Commerce have named Mike Gear Educator of the Year. Now therefore, I, Mayor Brett Stelzer of Sidney, proclaim October 7th, 2011 to be the night for Mike. Congratulations.
That's pretty neat, huh? I like it. I'm just going to talk a couple of minutes because I don't have much time, but I want to tell you some things. It's hard to reminisce when you're as old as I am, but I want to talk about some things that I know and I remember about Mike. Mike was an outstanding athlete, he was a really good basketball player, a really good running back in football, a great pole vaulter, a Legion baseball player, tremendous ping pong player. When I was lifeguarding, he was the best diver in town. Went to college, pole vaulted, played football, married the homecoming queen, Dixon State. She was homecoming queen in 1995. The only weakness that I can think of about Mike when he played was, I coached Legion baseball. He was really a good hitter, good base runner, good fielder. Couldn't throw as far as his granddaughter. We did scientific research one evening. We took a tape out there, had him throw as hard as he could. Bob Atchison can probably verify this. He threw 51 feet 4 inches. So we had to put him in second base because he couldn't throw any farther than that. Other than that, I can't think of weakness. A really good thing about Mike that I remember, he always made a good impression on people, and this is a true story. This is one I told you I was going to tell about my mother. I stopped and saw her today. She's 102. And she always said, of all the kids that I coached, he was her favorite. She thought he was cute. And she thought he was fast and scored a lot. It was fun to watch. And he was our leader. And I've got another story about that. But one of those years when he didn't win was 5. It might be the year I don't know. I think he got third over here. But he had to go to Anaconda, Whitefish, and Ronan. So we beat Ronan after Ronan. I was at that demon track and got to see it. And when we got to that second week, my mother was still here in Sidney, and she called me and she said, "Punky, don't you work for that place that makes all those rules for high school sports?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "How come Mike's got to go back over to Western Montana again?" And I said, "Well, that's all written years in advance." She said, "Well, it's Tuesday. Get it fixed by Friday." And she was serious. The other good story I'll tell really quickly about Mike, because we don't have much time. I was always kidding. I thought they were kidding when I was coaching here. From people like Jerry Buckner and Bob Frank and Norm Ziske and Kip Peterson, some people now that are calling, but some of you remember that I didn't even have to be there, but Mike did all the coaching. And of course, we have a laugh about that. Every time we won a game, they They'd say how, you didn't do anything, Mike did all the coaching. Of course, I knew they were kidding. But then, I got to thinking about that. Dan Peters told me a story tonight where someone was telling about Ewing always gagging before ball games, and I was in the restroom in some locker room. Mike was in drawing plays on the chalkboard. But anyway, after all that happened, a little later on, when I wasn't quite so immature, I figured out that they probably weren't kidding. It was the truth, because he was a tremendous leader, and that's a true story. I just figured out the guy did a tremendous job, and Bob Atchison can verify that too. Good to see you, Bob. We have 4 speakers tonight, and we'll get started because we're going to run out of time. I'd like to have Ryan and Troy Deere come up. They're going to speak and make a couple of presentations to Mike and Audrey. So they want to come up. These guys are moved to Wyoming, they're traders.
Though Iron Mike's softened through the years, teacher, mentor, coach, father. And I thought it was he who was going to break down. Not only to me, but a lot of you guys and gals here this evening. He led the path for a lot of us. He's been a wonderful father to me. He's been a wonderful father for our family. He's been a wonderful teacher, coach, mentor for a lot of us here tonight. So, thank you, Dad. With that, we have this very ugly dream. When the Vikings get their first win against the Packers. October 23rd game. I remember growing up in our house, we had this plaque that said, from the class of the 70s, it said, "The man that made us men." And I look at that and I think, this guy is taking all these boys that played football for Mike over the years, and he's truly made us men. And not only did he make us men, but he made us proud to be Eagles. I think when they did the trophy walk, we hung up the banners, and every time we got in this gym, we did jumping, every single one of people in this community felt the love about being a City Eagle. I think my dad represents that better than anyone else in this community ever has, and that makes me the most proud. Knowing that he raised me as a boy, he raised all of us to be men and be proud Eagles. So thank you all for attending, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next speaker is Monty Easy. I didn't see where he was. Monty.
I'm Monty Geese, graduated in the class of 1989. Got a tour of the school today from Dan, it was very nice, and got to thinking about it. It's been 23 years since I last played football here, Coach. And I'll tell you, walking out there, seeing you guys, I'm ready to strap them on, I'm ready to Although, I gotta say, about 2 months ago, my 9-year-old daughter beat me in a foot race, so I'm not sure how much I can do. When Dan called me to ask me if I could make a presentation or say a few words, I thought what to say about out here. You know, you look at the people out here and you say, this guy's affected so many lives over so many years, what could you possibly say? You know, people that are here, I think, says a lot, says it all.
Just a couple stories. A couple of stories as well. I graduated in '89. We won the championships in '87 and '88. I was actually impressed. On our tour, we were walking around, and Coy McMorris is substituting in the class, and he was teaching the chronology of Sydney Eagle state championships. And we were standing there, and he had '87 and '88 up on the board, and we were talking about it. One girl looked over and said, "You played that?" I said, "Yeah." But you win a couple state championships, you start thinking you're very good, you start getting a little cocky as an 18-year-old man. What is this school going to do without us? How could they possibly win anything without us? And you go up and win 5 more. So the first lesson, or actually the last lesson I learned from here was a little lesson in humility. People ask 7 in a row, all the victories, all the success they had. I agree with you, Jim. The answer for me is easy. How do you do it? It's a coach. It was this guy right here. And his coaching staff, without a doubt. He created an environment, he created a program that as a kid you aspired to be part of. You wanted to be a Sydney Eagle. I remember playing out there at halftime in 4 games with the Nerf football, my buddy, and we were Scott Gratz and Rob Gratz, and pretending we were the Bolt Boys, and pretending we were Paladuchuk and Burgess and Melby, and all the names. You wanted to be those guys. My God, you were going to do anything you could to be those guys. And I'll tell you, 23 years later, it's as important to me now as it was then. This program means a lot. One quick story. You talk about all the traveling. My junior year, we were peaked at about the right time. I think we finished 3rd in the conference that year. Barely made it to the playoffs. I think we were 5-3, and we squeaked in, and we had to play Anaconda, who was 8-0, and beating everybody bad. People thought we were going to go there and get our butts kicked. And we traveled over to Anaconda, and we played them hard. It's a hostile place to play. And we played them hard. It was 28-28 at the end of regulation. And so we get the ball first, and I think Liebach tried to throw the ball instead of just running it. 21 down, 22 down. He tried to throw it, so we couldn't get it in. Had to kick it. Brian Feely kicked a field goal. So that was a little bit of a loss for us, right? Because they had it from the 10-yard line, pretty easy to kick a field goal. So they got the first down. They ran for 4 or 5 yards. They were looking pretty good. It looked like they were going to go and score. We were going to lose. What should happen? Kid, I think, is either 2nd or 3rd down, I forget about it. He's running in, getting close to the end zone, he fumbles the ball. We recover. Holy cow, we won the game. We won the game. Crowd goes dead silent. This kid is crushed. I remember seeing just crumpled on the ground. We're all celebrating. We win this game, we should have won. We're overjoyed. We're all thinking about, how happy we are. What's the first thing he does? Runs over that kid that's on the ground.